So apparently there's been news that James Lee, the independent researcher, content creator, investigative journalist, he does a lot of great work. I tend to use him as a reference. We've shown a lot of his videos. He does really good deep dives when it came to, the Charlie Kirk assassination, to TikTok, to Larry Ellison. He does a lot of great content. I highly recommend checking him out. He's really good at the subject matter. It was announced by him that he is no longer being affiliated with Breaking Points. Now, Breaking Points is, Crystal Ball and Sagar and Jetty that used to be from The Hill. Then they broken into Breaking Points, which is their independent outlet. Even though I can't even really say they're an independent outlet because Breaking Points is backed by a lot of donors and it has become more mainstream. So Breaking Points, it's not an independent outlet. Let's just say that. It's not an independent outlet. It's basically like a democratic lefty, like almost the similar as Daily Wire. Almost similar as Daily Wire. They have different, outlets evolved from that. They have Ryan Grimm come on frequently. Obviously Kyle Kalinske is married to Crystal Ball, and that's its own drama and dilemmas right there. But here's what James Lee says about this. So James Lee was contracted by Breaking Points to be kind of one of their reporters. And turns out James Lee got fired by them. So he says, a personal update. I want to let you all know that my time as a contributor for Breaking Points has come to an end. I want to give a massive thank you to Sagar, who reached out to me when I just had 2,000 subscribers. He took a chance on me and gave me the confidence that I belonged in this crazy world of media. I'm incredibly grateful for the platform they provided, and I wish Sagar, Crystal, and the whole team nothing but the best going forward. As for what's next, I'm more energized than ever to double down on fully independent journalism. I'm excited to build a space where we can speak the truth without restriction. And I can't wait to share this new chapter with you all. Now, I do feel bad for James Lee to be in this position, but at the same time, James Lee, he's one of those people that I can assure you is better off being independent. Just like Candace Owens. Like, it's bad that you got fired from Daily Wire, but same time, Candace Owens has exploded after leaving Daily Wire. She's doing better as an independent and actually speaking her mind, being vocal, and being her own person than being tied down to these heinous organizations. And for Breaking Points in particular, again, another just outlet full of Democrat shills. Crystal Ball lied to people about Ukraine, lied to people about Joe Biden, lied to people about the Democratic Party, lied to people about the vaccine, lied to people about the measures and lockdowns. And, she's backed by the donor class of the Democratic Party. She endorses the squad, even though they're a bunch of frauds. Like, it's just a slew of garbage. Like I said, they're the left-wing Daily Wire. That's really what it comes down. They're the Democratic force of a Daily Wire platform. And it was coming to fruition. It was being exposed. You look at Kyle Kalinske, he started off good, and then of course his channel dropped off, and then all of a sudden he rollers back up again because he was promoting the Democrats, and he's just became a Democratic shill because he's now in favor of them, and they give him a better chance on the algorithm. They push him through the corporate algorithm. And I'm sure he's getting Democratic donor backing as well. So, firing James Lee, many people had different opinions on why he got fired. Some had said about, whether or not it was the interview with, what's that guy's name? Schaefer, who was targeted by the FBI, and apparently the people at Breaking Points didn't want that interview because there might have been some legal matter, which, it doesn't make sense because you're a journalist. You're allowed to have a conversation with someone. It's not like James Lee was going out to promote this guy or platform, as they say. You know, oh my God, you show someone on a screen, you're platforming someone. You know, not just having a conversation as a journalist, which is what people have been doing for years. Since the start of journalism ever existed, that's how you become a journalist. You have to actually engage with people you disagree with and have a conversation, but apparently that's platforming. So it could be that. It could be, you know, James Lee, associating with the Jimmy Dore show. I know he's guest hosted a couple times. He's, been on interviews that are with other platforms and other channels that, Breaking Point view as controversial or, alt-right, even though they're not right-wing. They're just critical of the Democratic establishment, which, that's what a journalist, an independent journalist, should be doing. But we live in a crazy upside-down world, and, Breaking Points is no different than any other mainstream outlet. They're just an alternative MSNBC. That's what it really is. So, here's James Lee on his channel, 5149, which I highly recommend go check it out on YouTube. And he's going to break this down. He also got deplatformed from TikTok. And I have a hunch to know exactly why he got deplatformed on TikTok. Much like I got deplatformed on TikTok, I had to restart my account all over again, which is why I haven't been active on that platform, because I'm fed up with it. But here's what he says.
There's a famous saying, all tyrannies rule through fraud and force, but once the fraud is exposed, then they must rely exclusively on force. And because my entire platform is literally dedicated to exposing fraud, it is maybe not a surprise that the powers that be are laying the hammer down on me right now pretty hard, seemingly all at once, and I could definitely use some of your support. So I'll start here. A few weeks ago, the pro-Israel Stop Anti-Semitism advocacy group named me anti...
By the way, one of my absolute laughable things right now is when I go on to X or I go on to a social media account and I scroll through to see some of the headlines, and the whole time I keep seeing posts from this Stop Anti-Semitism group, which we'll probably do a segment at some point. I don't have everything together, so probably be Friday or whatnot. This organization is just the most laughable I've seen on social media, because of these so-called anti-Semite awards. Who's the most anti-Semite of the year? And the nominees, holy crap, are they just absolutely hysterical? And for them to say that James Lee is part of this. Oh, James Lee is anti-Semite of the week, on the same category as Miss Rachel. Oh my God, a children's entertainer is an anti-Semite because, God forbid, she brought on a person who came from Palestine, who's a doctor or a photographer. I think he brought them both, and had a conversation like an actual person. The horror! And then, of course, Tucker Carlson's on there. What else did they say? There's so many ridiculous things that they... And apparently they claim, they fit the criteria of anti-Semitism. The criteria. My God. You fart in front of a synagogue, you're part of the criteria for anti-Semitism. That's... How low that organization is. And it just makes it makes it more hysterical that we're in an era where South Park existed. My grandparents grew up with All in the Family, for God's sakes. Remember the show that featured that famous bigot Archie Bunker? How did we go from that to naming randos on the internet as anti-Semites of the week? How we went from that to this is astonishing. It's laughable. And I think Stop Anti-Semitism actually did a post about South Park, 27 years later. I didn't realize they were making jokes about a Jewish character. Wow. Way to be so late to chime in on that. Anyway, let's go back to this.
Anti-Semite of the week. For what? Simply daring to call out Israel's lies and deceit. And this is what they're citing as anti-Semitism. Me saying that, quote, Israel is a parasite to the world and that their survival depends on deception, bribery, manipulation, and coercion, and that the truth threatens its very existence, which is all just factually true. There is a reason why they have a multi-million-dollar annual Hasbro budget for this exact specific purpose. They also
So this is he's breaking down why this Stop Anti-Semitism group claims that James Lee is designated the anti-Semite of the week. And it's because he posts things that actually holds an argument to, because there's actual historical presence with these arguments. So posting Israel as a parasite to the world. Well, considering the fact that we have spent millions upon billions of dollars, the fact that they're blackmailing, the fact that they have APEC and other lobby groups to funnel money out of America and Canada and the European Union towards Israel, kind of points that in that direction. It kind of really points that in the direction that, of course, the Zionists don't want revealed. They don't want this information. As James Lee's pointing out, all these claims that he's making are factually accurate. You just got to have the courage to look this up for yourself. Go look at the King David Hotel explosion. Go look at the terrorist groups that were funding to take over Palestine in the 1940s. Go look at that. Go look at how Zionists were teaming up with Nazi militias. And they want you to forget all that, because revealing that information is anti-Semitic against Jewish people. I think Zionism is against Jewish people by definition.
Evidently did not like that I called out the fact that the state of Israel was literally founded by Zionist terrorists and that they quite literally invented terrorism itself. Also just factually true. Just Google the King David Hotel 1946 and you will know exactly what I'm talking about. They also say that it's somehow wrong to argue that the ADL's, in my opinion, bastardized version or definition of anti-Semitism is not actually about protecting Jewish people, but is instead about protecting Israel from accountability.
Free speech is alive and well, folks. We stopped the DEI. We stopped wokeism. Those transgender Nazis are not going to deplatform people for telling jokes. But you are going to get deplatformed if you criticize Israel. You are going to get deplatformed if you think ICE is a Nazi brigade happening across America. You will get deplatformed if you point out the Trump administration is committing war crimes the same way that Joe Biden, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama would have done the same thing. America! F yeah!
So I guess trying to protect Jews is bad. Anyway, the Stop Anti-Semitism group was founded by this lady named Leora Rez, and their entire platform is all about getting people fired for criticizing Israel. Honestly, I think I should probably do a deep dive on them, and I think I will. But right now, they are literally telling people to mass report my account in order to deplatform me. And maybe, just maybe by coincidence, maybe not, I don't know for sure, but the second thing that happened to me in this last week was that my TikTok account was unceremoniously banned. For what specifically? I have no idea, because honestly, I haven't even been posting there very much because they were censoring me anyway, and I really couldn't post anything. People should know, if you don't know already, that the new owner of TikTok, billionaire Larry Ellison, is the largest private donor to the IDF, okay? And that the head of their content moderation is this lady named Erica Mendel, who is a former IDF soldier. But China is really the big problem, right?
His positions don't align with their new direction. What new direction was Breaking Point's getting to? Are they actually going to tell you the truth about COVID? Were they going to tell you the truth about Ukraine? Were they actually going to turn things around and reveal how they lied and scammed you? No, they weren't. What new direction was Breaking Point's going to do that interfered with James Lee being a journalist? Oh my God, I'm interviewing someone that's being attacked by the feds. That's going to interfere with our new changes to Breaking Points. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? It's interfering with the new changes. We're going to kiss more ass of the establishment. And this guy here is interviewing someone that could cause legal trouble. I don't understand that. I don't understand that. Like, you're a journalist. You're allowed to interview people and ask them questions. It's not like James Lee is championing and platforming this guy. He's just asking questions about what happened. That's what it means to be a journalist. I recently just saw the documentary they did for God, I'm blanking on the name. Who's the lady journalist that's been around forever? Barbara Walters. And she didn't care about legality. She didn't care. She went out and interviewed people that were controversial because people have the right to know. People had the right to know what was happening with Elijah Schaffer. People had the right to know about certain subject matter that may interfere with legality or interfere with accessibility. Which I think that's what Breaking Points was worried about. They're worried about not having access to certain federal people or certain access to political parties that they interview a podcaster and get James Lee to ask questions about a lawsuit that the federal government is putting on a podcaster. How dare you platform this radical independent? That's the only thing I can think of, because that doesn't even make sense.
We're stealing your data, so the solution for that is, of course, to turn around and hand it over to Israel. That is totally what America First is all about. Anyway, and then you have the hat trick. Number 3, you guys remember last week when I talked about how Breaking Points decided not to air my interview with Elijah Schaffer, who is being sued currently by Kash Patel's girlfriend, Alexis Wilkins? Well, yesterday, their producer sent me an email notifying me that my relationship with them will end, quote unquote, effective immediately. The reason they cited is that they're, quote unquote, looking ahead to 2026 and making some changes in content, and felt that my submissions did not align with their new direction. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but my gut feeling is that they probably felt that I was free speeching just a little too hard for their liking. And that is that. And quite honestly, I have absolutely no ill feelings from my side at all. I know many of you are Breaking Point supporters, right? That's probably where you first found my content to begin with. So definitely keep on supporting them if you so choose. That being said, it is clear that I am under attack right now from various forces for doing journalism. Essentially, that is it. I am being targeted for exercising my first.
There you go. That's a true independent content creator. That's a true independent journalist right there. That he's going to bring people together to have a conversation about issues that affect people that the mainstream media and even Breaking Points won't cover. And people trust more of James Lee. They trust more of, people like Jimmy Dore or Do Dissidents or Kim Iverson or Sabby Sabs or any of the other podcasters. They trust more because they're independent. They actually speak freely. They're not censorious to some corporate autocracy or an organization that does not do favors for their own audience. That's why, Candace Owens, skyrocketed the moment she left the Daily Wire, and she's become a firestorm that the Daily Wire is petrified because they realized that, we couldn't cancel Candace Owens. Candace Owens is going to go out and do her own thing, and she's going to be more successful. That's the thing about cancel culture. People think you can just silence out someone and they just go away. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. You know, you learn from, you know, what happened to Alex Jones. What happened with him? That he got canceled by Google, that they, you know, took down his YouTube channel, that Apple Music wasn't putting on. And guess what? He became more popular. He became more popular because the moment you cancel someone, they become the victim. Not the people canceling them, but the person that got canceled. They become the victim. They get more sympathy and outreach because obviously if you're getting canceled by, you know, big top nefarious goons in the federal government or somewhere else censorious, then they might be doing something correctly. And they get more popular. So I sympathize with James Lee that it's unfortunate, but at the same time, you know, he's going to do way better away from Breaking Points, because I think Breaking Points was definitely holding him back. You know, not allowing to do an interview because it's affecting the new change, the new format we have at Breaking Points. Okay, guys, Kyle and I want to tell you that we're doing some new changes, and since we want to renovate our new kitchen and then support our donor backers, that's why we had Miriam Adelson perform our wedding. Guys, we got a great show for you guys. We got to change the format. So James Lee's got to go. We're independent, guys. So there's a site, though, if you want to check it out, 5149jameslee.com. Again, I really respect this guy. He is, he's knocking it out of the park. He does these amazing, great deep dives. He's all over the place, and he's true to his form. And that's really memorable. That's really impactful. I always love people that are committed to sticking to the truth, sticking to being a voice for the people that don't have voices, and for sticking his neck out and being an actual journalist, which that used to be the case before, you know, journalism got hijacked. So there's a site there. Again, you want to check it out, 5149jameslee.com. Help support him. You can also go to his YouTube channel, support him on there. I don't think he's on Rumble. He's on X if you want to follow him on there. And again, he's also on TikTok. He was on TikTok. I don't think he's going to go back because, you know, why would you? Why would you after all this? And people like Ryan Mata even spoke out about this. So here's what Ryan Mata had to say about James Lee.
So, in case you haven't heard, your boy James Lee has just been shit-canned from Breaking Point. Now, on the plus side, 99% of people listening to this video never heard of Breaking Point, so Breaking Point can just go ahead and fuck off and suck a bag of dicks because, well, they took a big L. And we can only assume it's probably because they're aligned with some Israel Zionist first propaganda and some warmongering neocons, and they don't support free speech, which is why literally one of the most talented content creators in the game, the man who's going to be the next Ian Carroll, Joe Rogan, Candace Owens, like the man that's on the come up and would have brought their entire organization with them, they're going to shit can that man, probably the most talented man in their entire media enterprise, because I've never heard of Breaking Point. And I definitely follow all of James Lee's work. So, that being said, I think Breaking Point's taken the L, but James Lee is...
So, he's just going to show what we already saw, but there's Ryan Mata. Again, I'm sure Ryan Mata and James Lee have differences in opinion, just like I'm sure we all have differences in opinion, but as you say there, like, content creators do need to come together when it comes to censorship, when it comes to this unaccountable, just massive droves of trying to silence people for no reason. So again, real respect to James Lee. I think he's a really good podcaster, commentator, content creator. He does a lot of great work, and he also came from pharmaceuticals, which I didn't know about. I did not know about that. He used to work in a pharmaceutical industry, and he left that during COVID. So that says something. That says something. Because I'm sure working in pharmaceuticals at the time of COVID, I'm sure he was, raking in that nice dough. So to give all that up to go into podcasting, which, let's face it, isn't exactly a moneymaker. I know that from my own experience. Really says something. So kudos to him. I support him. I support Ryan Mata. I support Jimmy Dore. I support Tim Iverson. People are willing to stick their necks out. Even Candace Owens. Again, I don't agree with everything that these people say, but they're willing to stick their necks out. They're willing to be actually independent people, and they actually do journalism. They're actually the voice that people are hungry for and desperate for. You don't have to agree with everything with every ideology that they have, but you have to admire that people are willing to stick their necks out and bring a voice to a conversation that's being controlled and censored and being silenced. So, James Lee, best of luck to you, and we'll keep supporting you. If you want to help support him, like I said, 5941jameslee.com, or subscribe to his platforms because he does really good work.